Hi guys and welcome back to the channel. Today we're continuing with REN's Day. And this is going to be the REN interview that Justin Hawkins had collared REN on. It's going to be part one of it anyway. Let's check it out. Okay, so whenever the part in this video is that REN talks about when he thought he was going to die at the age of, before the age of 13, but we'll skip that bit out because we've already done that snippet of that interview. But I'm going to try and do around about, 30, 40 minutes of this interview, then we'll split it up into other parts. Okay, so this is Justin Hawkins talking to REN. Let's see what they've got to say.
Justin Hawkins, and this is Justin Hawkins Rides Again. Here comes he swearing that.
I'm subscribed to Justin Hawkins, by the way. I do watch some of his videos of the stuff that I know the band of or whatever. So if you're not subscribed to him because he's good and he's funny.
Hawkins, and this is Justin Hawkins Rides Again. Here comes he wearing that jacket and hat combination that makes him look like an all-American hero or
Top
Murdoch from the original A-Team series.
Yeah.
The answer to that is
I
just wanted you to like me. Just trying to fit in. All right. A lot of you have been awaiting the release of this episode. Because today I'm speaking with REN. And for those of you unaware, REN is a songwriter that has become incredibly popular over the last couple of years. His songs and videos are receiving millions of views on YouTube.
And he deserves it.
Due to his incredible storytelling.
Yes.
I've reacted to 2 of his videos on this channel already, and both of them blew me away. REN has had a tough life due to his battle with chronic illness. I spoke to him while he was over in Canada receiving treatment. Thank you for all of your questions. I hope you enjoy this interview. You can also listen to it as an audio podcast on whatever podcast app you happen to use.
Awesome.
But for now, please, to enjoy. Good day to you, one and all. It is I.
Oh, he didn't do his normal Justin Hawkins Rides Again with the guitar. He just changed the intro to Again.
Enjoy.
Yay.
Good day to you, one and all. It is I, Justin Hawkins, and this is Justin Hawkins Rides Again, long form. I don't know why I said it in that sort of radio DJ from the 90s voice. I'm just excited because today I'm being joined by REN, and REN is an artist who we all love and admire, and he's given up some of his precious time to spend talking to me about what we're going to talk about.
What are we going to talk about? Oh, everything you want to know, everything and anything, Justin.
We're going to talk about everything. I can't wait.
All at once.
He's going to do the jingle now, isn't he?
Let's do it. Justin Hawkins Rides Again.
Done it there, that's why.
Again with REN. It only occurred to me to do that rhyme in the last moment there.
I would have prepared something, and we could do something like a dueling banjos type intro scenario.
Do it! Any points, do it! I think you should collab with Justin Hawkins on an acoustic style thing, and I'm going to do the interview in Knox Hill as well, and they should do a rap collab.
Scenario.
Amazing. Have you got your guitar there, actually?
Yeah, but whether or not it'll be picked up by the microphone is a complete different story. Hang on, wait 2 seconds.
It's crap through the podcast microphone.
REN is 33 years old, and he's from Bangor in Wales.
It's funny, it looks like he's talking to a guitar.
Not with an H, it's just Wales. And he was a member of the indie hip-hop band Trick the Fox and Big Push, which is a British busking band based in Brighton. So, do you actually live in Brighton or in Wales?
No, I moved out of Wales. I escaped when I was 19 years old.
Escaped is very, very accurate. Wales is a country where it always rains. Always rains. And it's very hilly as well.
So I've lived in various places since then. I lived in Bath for a bit. I lived in Brighton. I did have to move home to Wales during the sort of peak of my health problems for a long time. But for the most part, recently, in the most recent years, yeah, I've been in Brighton. Love it.
Do you feel like there is an are you from a small town?
A very small. No, I'm not from Bangor. So Bangor's a little bit of a. There's an interesting fact about Bangor actually. It's got the highest pub to student ratio in the UK.
Okay. One pub apiece, so you never need to speak to anybody else while you're.
Exactly, mate. No, I'm from an even smaller place called Dwyran, which is on the Isle of Anglesey. Okay. So at Anglesey, if people don't know, it's like the head on the end of Wales.
Yeah. It's separated by a little body of water. It's a little. You can see Anglesey from. I think it's either Liverpool. I think it's Liverpool. I think you can just about see Anglesey.
And it's a very, very we had one shop in the whole village, and then there was a supermarket that you had to drive an hour to get to.
Wow.
But then we had one shop in the village that shut down. So it was a very like rural, little tiny place. But
a lot of
that's
places
where
in
I'm
Wales
from,
are like that.
Wow. And so when you say escape, do you mean in order to pursue your music dreams? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like because that's the sort of story I told myself until I thought about it a bit more, and it was kind of because nobody was really doing music when I was growing up. It was none of my friends, none of my friendship circle, and but that forced me, I think, because I got into it through producing drum and bass music. I think I heard a song by Aphrodite, this drum and bass producer called Aphrodite, when I was about 12 years old. Before that, I played guitar and stuff, but I became obsessed with this idea, and I got myself a copy of Reason. I started producing, and it wasn't until
Reason is a beats producing program. I did that at college.
I became obsessed with this idea, and I got myself a copy of Reason. I started producing, and it wasn't until I was like, I need to find a singer or a rapper, and asking around and couldn't find anyone as a 12-year-old.
Have a go yourself.
So I started doing it myself. So really that isolation kind of forced me to start doing all these things, singing, and I was absolutely terrible when I first started. I've got some...
The isolation, or the, not being able to turn to people to help you with your music because there's not a lot of people in your town, has developed his creativity, it's developed his voice, it's developed his abilities. So maybe that was a blessing in disguise.
Recordings of my...
I can't believe that. I think your pipes are...
It's very, very true. If you hear those early recordings, everyone's always like, nah, but I'm like, no, really, really was. It was just persistence and time.
Ren, put some of your early stuff on. Come on, put some of your really early stuff on there. If you've still got the files for it, we want to hear it.
And share.
Do you think it's confidence as well, though? Because I mean, you've obviously got range and power and control.
It was really just that I just
Practice.
Relentless. I was upset. I was kind of lucky that there are a lot of people, I think, when they're that age, they're still trying to figure out what the hell they want to do or what they want to be. And I've even had conversations with a lot of my friends who get quite depressed about trying to find their space in the world and who they are. And I think I was quite lucky, and ever since I started playing, ever since I was about 10 years old, I was very sure of what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be, and it was always something encompassing music. So I think rather than it was just because confidence, I think, was something that I had to work on as well. When I first started performing, I was shaking like a leaf, man. So it was more just pure determination that I had to do it, and there was nothing else I could do. And by the time I was in my 20s, that was literally true, because I'd neglected every area of personal development other than music. So my practical skills applying to anything else, like I can throw together a song, but put up a set of shelves and I struggle.
Right. So basically, if he didn't have music, he'd have nothing. Basically, because he can't do anything else. Okay, I know there's a few musicians around here like that.
I can throw together a song, but put up a set of shelves and I struggle.
Yeah, I think that's so. Going back to not being able to find collaborators, I think that's the mother of that's the necessity. That's the mother of you inventing REN, who's basically a person that can do all of that.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, because there was so many things that I wanted to. Just because I wanted to do so much, and I guess I diagnosed ADHD very young, and I guess that was part of it. I wanted to do everything, but it's also part of me that I love collaborating. It's not so much that I need to do everything, because I love it when someone does something better than me. It's fantastic because I can bring them in and we can create something that I would have never been able to create by myself, which is why I feel now blessed to live in Brighton, where there's an incredible network of people around me.
When you move from a small town to like a bigger town, and you've got all those people in busy streets and stuff, you've always going to bump. There's always street performers. Like, say, didn't he message? I think I seen it in that interview. He messaged Sam Tompkins, didn't he? About collaborating. When he's seen him busking, sort of thing, and that's when they made like these other videos, like when they do the collabs and what have you. And they've done a few of them, haven't they?
Music scene in Brighton, isn't there? Do you ever feel like have you ever thought about living in London? Have you ever tried that?
I've spent a fair bit of time in London. I think because even though I was craving more going on, coming from I'm quite antisocial little bugger, and coming from a small little place, I find London quite claustrophobic. And one thing I find quite ironic about London is there's such a huge amount of people crammed into quite a small place in terms of a capital city. But there's still a feeling of almost like disconnection. When I grew up in these small villages, there's a lot of hello, knowing all your neighbours, saying hello to them. Whereas you sit on a tube in London and
you're on your own.
There's not a huge amount. There's still this kind of feeling of separation, which I always found quite bizarre.
I get that, because London, everyone's in a rush. Everyone just doesn't stand still, and everyone crams onto a train, even though they're every 5 minutes. And it's like, what are you doing? Everyone's pushing past you. Everyone's trying to stand in the train like that. And then you don't talk to nobody in that train. You just stood next to a load of people, and nobody talks to each other. You just like, and then you feel separate. I get that. Totally get it. It's better to be in that little town, knowing everybody, saying hello to people, spread out, than it is being in London, hustle and bustle, blah, blah, blah. I hate the subway. I hate the underground. I hate the whole shebang of London, and everyone's in a rush. People are banging into you and everything.
Because it's not always like that when you travel to different European cities. Not always. I think that there's moments that break through that. But for me, I found that a little bit, the claustrophobia and the separation I found when I spent elongated times in London. I do love London because it's just such a big hub of so much going on. But
I think it's the greatest city in the world. I mean, that's kind of like, I always think my experience of London was, you go to London, you're pursuing music, you're sleeping on people's floors, and there is a community, like a sort of subculture of struggling musicians who help each other out whilst also jealously kind of slagging each other off. It's a really strange kind of there's two sides to it, but it is awesome to be involved in it. And then at some point in my life, I had to stop sort of drinking, and I had to sort of change all of my social activity, basically just stopped going out. And then then I really felt lonely, and I totally felt exactly what you're describing there, because there's not really the same sense of community that you would have on where'd you say it was, in Anglesey?
Anglesey, yeah. Well, I suppose I never spent enough time in London to be able to dive into those little smaller pockets of subcultures and scenes. So yeah, I'm sure there is, like in a lot of cities, it's just digging around and finding the right little niche area. So that's probably partly it, because I never lived in London. It was more just I'd go there for a week or 2 weeks, and it was always like sort of music related thing. And I feel like I really found my feet with all that in Brighton, and it's the same sort of thing. There's this network of musicians, and you get to know everybody from the 80-year-old busker on the street to people who are coming up and starting in their new bands and stuff. And it's just really nice to be part of a community that feels like it's lifting each other up, and you do get the odd people slagging each other off as well.
You do. I suppose life is not life. Someone has always got a problem. I get it on YouTube. Even I get it on YouTube, and I'm a nobody.
Lifting each other up, and you do get the odd people slagging each other off as well. But I suppose that's all part of the parcel.
All part of the fun, I think.
Yeah, man. Yeah, of course. Good little.
And if you can escalate that to a full-on feud once you make it, that's the really fun stuff.
Yeah, nice. No, I can't wait for that. I want a musical arch nemesis. No, I want a musical arch nemesis. Like a Sherlock style. Just because I feel like they spur you on.
Like Blur and Oasis in my time. Okay, bands that hate each other.
A musical arch nemesis, like a Sherlock style.
The trouble with REN is he's just too damn nice for anyone to be a nemesis to him. It's all about lifting each other up and helping each other, and no one's gonna, it's like falling out with bloody Elmo.
I'll just because I feel like they spur you on. I don't feel like I've got that yet. Yeah.
Who would be your Moriarty then? Who are you looking for?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure who it is yet. I don't want to pick someone in case it... or maybe that's the good thing to do, because then I'll just plant a seed.
I think you should, because then...
What Justin should have said, is there anybody out there that you hate? That's what he should have said.
They'll be thrilled, because you basically you define each other in that instance, don't you? I mean, Blur without Oasis wouldn't be the same thing,
That's what I said! Go on, Justin. We're from the same time era.
Find each other in that instance, don't you? I mean, Blur without Oasis wouldn't be the same thing, and vice versa. Yeah. And back in the 80s, it was Wet versus Bros. Do you remember?
Oh, I didn't know that.
You're
No, I
way
didn't know
too
that.
young to remember that, but that was one I grew up with.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a think on it. Then I'm gonna pick someone. I'm just gonna start mercilessly bitching about them in everything that I do. I'm just gonna be like, you know who I fucking hate.
Yes,
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna start to do.
Yeah. And then
Do you know who I fucking hate? Me? Who? Justin Hawkins. He should have done that. He should have done that on the camp. That'd have been funny.
like a really awkward collaboration with them in a few years.
Yeah, where all the bad blood is some, but then yeah, of course.
It'll be a beautiful moment. There's a movie in there somewhere. You know when you were saying that you were shaking like a leaf when you first performed, are you talking about when you were doing busking or like when you were playing with the band?
Yeah, so that was I suppose. Actually, the first time I was 13 years old, and there was this house band at this gig that I went to, and I was kind of thrown in the deep end a little bit, and that I was into this really sort of like emo band called AFI at the time, and they had this song called Morning Star. They were kind of like post-punk.
I've covered a couple of AFI songs.
And
is that short for A Fire Inside?
That's the band. That's the band. Yeah, the singer Davey Havoc. He's got like yourself. He's got an incredible range, like high-end range. And they had this song called Morning Star, and that was the first song I ever performed live. And
okay.
Actually, I think that one went quite well. It was my first experience where I really like lost my nerve. Actually, no, the second one as well. I wrote a song about the fact that my mate, because the first songs that I used to write were all just basically taking the piss out of my mates, and I think that was a bit of a defense mechanism, because for me, if a song wasn't serious, it couldn't really be judged on how good it is, because it's meant to be crap. So all the songs.
I heard the voice from REN then, you know, when he says like seashells. Oh, the music is about the process, and I could hear his voice then, because then if the song's not fucking serious, you know, it can't be judged, etc. Okay.
The piss out of my mates, and I think that was a bit of a defense mechanism,
write.
because for me, if a song wasn't serious, it couldn't really be judged on how good it is, because it's meant to be crap. So all the songs that I used to write, one of them snuck its way onto my first album, which was Streetlights, which I wrote when I was like 15 or 16.
Okay.
But it was just songs that were basically, they didn't really take themselves seriously. And the second song I took, my mate Chris, who is my mate Steve's older brother, he was old enough to go and buy his alcohol when we were little despicable youths, and he was a massive lightweight, and all of us were, you know, little teenagers who could drink more than him, and I wrote a song about him being a massive.
That's because teenagers drink without telling anybody.
Lightweight, and all of us were, you know, little teenagers who could drink more than him, and I wrote a song about him being a massive lightweight, and that was the second song I performed live. But again, there was confidence within the silliness of it. But the first time I went busking, I remember it's just to turn up. I didn't have an amp at the time, like a busking amp, and I just, you know, I sat myself down on the street. There's a street, and it's quite a daunting thing just to like, because when you first do it, now that I take to it like water, and I'm almost more confident in front of a mic than I am off it. But back then, it's quite a daunting thing to suddenly just look out into the abyss of a crowd and then just start to sing and express yourself. So the first time I did that,
the first time you're worried about, am I going to be any good? Are people going to start throwing things at me? Are they just going to walk away, knocking your confidence, etc.? Okay.
I was nervous, but I obviously wasn't nervous enough for it to put me off, because that quickly became. I almost. It's an odd one, because I've played quite big shows now, but there's something about busking that I still absolutely love, and I think it's just the fact that you can
connect with people.
You can reach such a diverse, like you could reach an 80-year-old woman going out to. Nipping out to get some tea bags, to like a toddler, to the sorts of people who would turn up at your gigs, and
the thing about that is you're connecting with normal people. It's more intimate if you're playing to a crowd who stood here right in front of you and just everyday people, instead of just going to a concert, filling a stadium, and they're miles away. Do you know what I mean? It's more intimate. The busk, and probably the addictions of doing the busking is the fact that you've got the crowd so close, and you see the smiles on the faces when you're performing, etc. I get that totally.
Tea bags to like a toddler, to the sorts of people who would turn up at your gigs, and it's.
I think the thing about busking is that it's the opposite of doing your own show, in the sense that you haven't got a captive audience. It's literally just people who are walking around,
and they stop,
and you have to engage on a. I don't know. You have to find a way to connect, don't you, with people who just have no inclination. They didn't come out looking for music, you know.
That's it, and they're stopping from their own free will. Then they don't have to be like at a gig. You know, you've bought the ticket, you're there. But the people that stop on the street, they're only really stopped by your level of your, I guess, ability to engage just a street full of people.
And also, if the song that you're singing strikes a chord with them, if you're doing a cover sort of thing.
Of your, I guess, ability to engage just a street full of people. And I got really addicted to that, and I'm almost beyond that. I got addicted to the psychology of it, that okay, if two people stop, that enables a lot of other people to feel like it's safe to stop. It's like the thing, I don't know if they
knock-on effect.
I love looking into the psychology of people witnessing other people perform. That was it's why in those talent shows they show somebody gasping or crying, and then all of a sudden there's this thing that's ignited in your brain that makes you almost start to tear up just because you've seen somebody else. There's a word for it.
Knock-on effect. Knock-on effect.
Makes you almost start to tear up just because you've seen somebody else. There's a word for it.
Are you talking about a collective hysteria, like the thing that used to make girls and women scream at Beatles concerts in the 60s?
I guess that. So it's called mirror neurons. Sorry, it's called mirror neurons. So it's applicable in lots of different other areas other than just performing. But yeah, that's exactly it. Like somebody sees something behaving a certain way, and because we're creatures of community, then we start mirroring those behaviors. So if you see somebody watch something and tear up, you start to tear up and go, bloody hell, but your thoughts of this is so emotional. So what I noticed is when you're performing and busking, say the second you get more than a couple of people stopping, and it maybe takes a little while to get those 1 or 2 people to stop, but once they've stopped, you've got a crowd. Before you know it, it's a crowd of 30 people, it's a crowd of 50 people, it's a crowd of 100 people, and it's I find that stuff quite fascinating.
And do you, when it's like a group of say 2 or 3 people, do you really focus on them ones, or are you looking to expand?
Yeah, and I like to perform.
Give back.
It doesn't matter really how many people are witnessing it. It's for me, even if nobody's there, I kind of still want to. I feel like I owe it to the performance to still give the same performance. And
it's that old saying, isn't it? When as long as you reach one person, then whatever song you made or perform has done its job. Do you know what I mean? A lot of musicians say that. And you know, he's saying that as well. Ren's obviously saying, doesn't matter if nobody stops, I'm just going to do my song anyway. And I want to do that song justice, etc., because he cares about his music. But, I mean, the whole thing is about changing people's lives, changing people's perspectives with music. I get that.
I feel like I owe it to the performance to still give the same performance. Yeah, because I was never really one to be swung by, or someone goes, "Oh, this important person's here. You've got to really fucking do a good job."
No,
I've never really been
a showcase situation.
Yeah, exactly. I never really liked the pressure of those showcase situations, because I've been in a few of those scenarios. I just
always be
and I think again that's why I like busking, is because it's just everyday humans. There's no expectation, and also you can make a song last for 10 minutes if you want out there as well. It's not like everything to the queue, and
they're not going to ask for their money back, are they?
No, exactly. If people don't like it, they can just bugger off, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I just really, I love it.
Going back to the stars and trying to put on a show for someone who's important and that, as long as you be yourself, and as long as you're good at what you do, as long as you care about what you do, you're going to make it in life no matter what level you achieve it at. And that's it.
I think there's something about what did you say it was, the mirror neurons?
Mirror neurons, I think that's it, yeah.
That's a really interesting expression, which I've never heard before. But when I'm doing when I do a gig and it's a support slot, you know, you're looking out at a room full of faces that are just going, that's not Guns N' Roses, or whoever it happens to be that you're supporting, you know, and there can be a level of disdain, you know, some eye rolls and like, oh God, looking at the watches. But there's always like 1 or 2 people that are into it. Yeah. And I tend to sort of anchor the attention, or, you know, the direction of my performance to those little pockets of people that do it. And I find that when I do that, that mirror neuron thing expands those little pockets, and then if you do your job properly, there's a possibility you can get the whole crowd, or at least a good percentage of it. And I think that's something that I do. Yeah. I do that in a cynical way to try and win the day, really.
No, I admit,
if you're a support act and you've got to try and blow that crowd away because they've come for the headline. They say, oh, it's supporting acts is this band, that band. Supporting acts is the darkness. You've got to be good. You've got to be blowing them off. You've got to try and upstage the band that they've come to see. I get that.
It makes sense. There's this beautiful video on YouTube of it's at a festival, and then it's this one lone crazy person starts to get up and dance. You might have seen it. It went viral, I think. And then it takes a while for just one other person to join them. But then, as the time progresses, by the end of the video, you've got a whole bunch of people up in this vacant spot in a field dancing.
Knock-on
But
effect.
it just took that one person to be ballsy enough to get up and do it. And I guess it's the same thing. Yeah, if you've got a couple of people vibing, it just kind of enables a lot of people. Because if you've just got a room full of people with their arms crossed going, oh, fucking...
Which sounds like every industry showcase that I've ever had.
Yeah, then that is going to...
It happens to Justin a lot. Oh, kudos for admitting that, Justin.
Like every industry showcase that I've ever
Yeah,
had to do with.
then that is going to expand onward. But I like that as well. I like a good challenge in those uncomfortable situations where you've got, because I remember every musician's been through it when you first start and you're singing in a pub and nobody really gives a shit that you're there, and you're trying to. There's this because most musicians are massive attention seekers. I definitely fall into that category, and you're trying to.
As do I, my friend.
Yeah.
You can try too hard though in that situation. You can try too hard and make yourself look desperate. That's what he's trying to say here. And a lot of people who play music sometimes look like attention seekers. When you start playing in bars and stuff, unless it's a bar with a big room. If it's just a bar and you stood in the corner playing, you're classed as background music, aren't you? You know what I mean? And it just people carry on drinking, carry on talking while you're playing. But if you go to a bar that's got a stage and a room, like in a club or a social club or something, then they're there to see you. I understand that.
Attention seekers, I definitely fall into that category, and you're trying to.
As do I, my friend.
Yeah. And you're trying to, and it feels so frustrating.
Justin Hawkins is an attention seeker. Never.
Frustrating when you're bearing your soul and everybody's just, they want to finish their chips. And so I found that a bit of a challenge to, like, how do I break through this noise without
just be yourself,
presenting myself in this frustrated way where I'm actually more just trying to bring people in. And I guess that's the skill of being a performer, because then you learn how to do it in more positive ways rather than just feeling angry at people for not looking at you.
So your first instrument is guitar then, presumably, right?
It is indeed, yeah.
And I wanted to ask you if you had any flamenco background somehow, because I sometimes hear some Angulican, or what is it called? Andulation. I've forgotten what it's called now. Some weird intervals in there that you hear in flamenco.
Yeah,
playing.
No, I don't. It's
Just
always been because I haven't had lessons either. So I was always, and any time I attempted to, I think I've had 2 lessons in my life that I attempted, and both times it didn't really work. It just, I don't know if there's something about my mind that didn't work.
Why? Because you have a solid idea of what you want to do.
I just think I think it's just the ADHD-ness, because you're set homework, and it's the same with school, man.
Yeah.
Whenever I was set homework, I was shit at completing it. So they go, right, take this and prepare this for the next lesson. By the time the next lesson come along, I hadn't done it. For me, self-inspired learning works really well. So I'm able to sit down.
Self-inspired learning is the best way to do it, because if you're structured, if you are put into a lesson, then you're taking the fun out of it, because you're making it to work. You're making it work, should I say, and doing it on your own time, on your own, with your own, what's the word? At your own speed, if you like, and discovering stuff by yourself. That is the best way to learn, because that sounded good, and then you'll start messing and doing it more. You know what I mean? It's fun for you then. You're not pressured into getting to a certain standard. You just do what you want to do, and if you get a job where you don't feel like you're working and it's fun, then you'll never work again.
Come along, I hadn't done it. For me, self-inspired learning works really well. So I'm able to sit down and in a sense, YouTube has been my teacher, because I've sat down and I've watched loads of YouTube videos, because I've gone, I want to get this technique down. So I Google it, and there's a teacher, and I find one that I resonate with, and I sit down and I learn it through that. And a lot of the time it was, I'd listen to, when I first started, I was listening to Hendrix or Frusciante records, just slow down, and I'd just stay there with my guitar, and I guess I just work out my own way of playing those techniques. And in the end, I guess it is theory, but I see patterns when I play the guitar. Same with the piano. My theory is actually quite bad, but
it's unorthodox, is what it is. There's no right way and no wrong way to play any instrument. It's you. It's you who does what you want to do and how you feel comfortable playing. I've always said that.
I see patterns on the, and I guess if you were to expand those patterns mathematically, it would make sense in the world of theory. It's just that that's how my brain's interpreting it. And in terms of the
Give
weird,
me an example of a pattern.
Well, it's like, you know, with time I learned the pentatonic scale, like every musician does. But before I knew that was the pentatonic scale, it was just that I knew this note, you know, like there's this shape that's almost like this. It's almost like Wales, the shape of or England in the way, because it's got its little arm sticking out, and then it's got its two little feet sticking out, and then the rest of it is a box. So that's kind of how I see it. I see the shape of what it is, rather than understanding that this semitone makes sense with this one, and this is why it mathematically makes sense. My brain isn't very good at working like that. But in terms of like the dissonant intervals and stuff, it was more I'm very good at hearing the melody in my head before it's played. And I love those really dissonant Stravinsky style intervals where it just feels a little bit jarring and then resolves nicely.
Yes.
And for me, it's just more of a case of I hear it in my head and then I fuck around with the fretboard until I make it, and then I work out the most ergonomic, efficient way to play it, so my fingers don't have to travel the furthest distance. So it's less so theory; it's more just a lot of trial and error until. So
basically, what Ren's doing there is he's reinventing guitar playing or learning the guitar. He can visualize the audio and the shape, and then he'll do it. If that note rhymes with that note, and if that one goes down there, okay. So if I play that note down here, then it's going to be quicker for me to do that than just go over there. You know what I mean? I see what he's doing. It's very, very clever way of writing.
It feels right, which is probably a longer way to do it. If I understood theory, it'd probably be a lot quicker. But it's just the way that I've always done it.
Just keep doing what you're doing.
I'm only just starting to realise the importance of theory, or, you know, I put that in inverted commas, actually. Because I was never really familiar with it. I think I sort of taught myself a lot in the same way that you have, you know, just trying stuff out, and I would always listen to things and then try and do it, but then I'd only be interested in the tricks. You know, I want to know the flashy stuff,
of course.
And then, you know, after that, work backwards. And now I love economical guitar playing.
Of course. I'm hoping my brain settles down and lands in the same place. But but I don't know. For me, it's always been. I think because I started young as well, and because I just always playing guitar and took it everywhere. It's people are like, oh, but how do you do this, and how? And it's more like you ask them, well, how do you speak English? You know, I've been doing it for so long that it feels so second nature now.
Natural.
That I don't really know how to explain it. Just like I wouldn't know how to explain how I'm constructing a sentence with these similes and things that make sense and have to follow this. Like the rules, I don't really understand, but I just know that I can do it. And there was a sentence I heard that you should learn the rules in order to break them, so that you can create something new. But I suppose if you've never learned the rules, anyway. You don't even know that you're breaking them, so it's a lot easier to do it.
Yeah, he's doing it anyway. What Ren's doing is he's creating his own style. That's all he's doing, creating his own style. Like I say, there's no right and wrong way to play guitar. I mean, you have all the theories saying this note works no matter how much. This note works in this key, and all these other notes work in that key. And it's the same with all the key of A, key of B, key of C, etc. And you get a certain amount of notes. But if you want to play outside that, and it might sound putrid when you're playing it. But if you want to play that, there's no right and wrong way. Just that you're not following the orthodox way. That's all it is. I seen one guy in an interview years ago. I can't even remember what it was or who it was. But he said, some people play scales. Scales are for fish. I like to make my guitar puke. Some people just play different. That's all it is. There's no right and wrong way to do anything.
The rules, if you don't know what the rules are, then they clearly don't apply to you.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
And there shouldn't be any rules. I think that's actually the truth of it.
But then I do to kind of be devil's advocate. I do also understand the benefits of, if I did understand it, I'm sure that I would be a much more proficient player. So I do understand.
You're good enough as you are, Ren. Trust me, you're good enough as you are.
I'm not to say it's all crap and fucking, because some people's brains really work well in that way, and they can pull it off amazingly. And there's part of me that envies that as well.
That's because you're your own worst critic. He's being hypercritical of himself and not realizing just how good he actually is.
Yeah. But you know your way around the fretboard, which is the most important thing.
Yeah.
I'm just interested in whether you're probably a bit like me. I don't like mucking around with alternate tunings and stuff, because I think if I do that, then suddenly my whole understanding of like the patterns and the shapes and the places that I'm used to putting my fingers, they're just not going to make the sound that I'm expecting to hear. I can't work like that. You know? I need to sort of be able to play and sing along with what I'm doing. You know, like I always do this kind of stuff. Like you know. And I know exactly what my fingers are going to do, and I can sing along to it in anticipation.
If you detune your string, it's going to do it. That's what's going to happen. I understand what he's saying there. A lot of bands play just in drop D or drop C or whatever they want to play in, and they just play everything like that. But I mean, it depends what style of music you want to play. It's more, I think it's more, if you're playing rock music, you get away with it. It doesn't matter because it's all drowned out by loads of other instruments and bass and etc. But if you're playing acoustically, that's where you hear it, because obviously just you and the guitar.
And I know exactly what my fingers are going to do, and I can sing along to it in anticipation. Change the tuning, and it's just never going to be like that.
Yeah. So the only time I mess around with the tuning really is if I'm writing something. So I did it with high REN. If there's a note that I can't reach in the standard DGBE tuning, I will just drop whatever string it is to make sure that economical finger placement makes sense. So the tunings aren't so much like a dadgad or a established tuning. It's more just like,
I'm moving the note
I need to change one string and make that make sense within the context of what I'm playing, then I'll just do it to suit it, basically.
Yeah. That's clever. That's clever, because if it's the third string down, no one ever bloody detunes that one. But if that note is like you're trying to do that with your hand, and then you detune the string and it brings the note to there and makes it easier to hit. I get that. But then the other notes that you had in the shape all get pushed aside as well. So you probably have to go that way earlier on in the song. You know what I mean? I get that. I get that totally.
A bass player that just won't learn songs. He just has his tech retune everything, so it's all just open strings.
Oh god!
And then he just goes like this, just points at people. Hey, hello ladies, how you doing? Nice to see you tonight. That kind of stuff, which is a good system as well. Isn't it? There's no rules.
Whatever works for you.
There's no rules.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple of things here in my preparation document.
Okay.
So it says here that you were misdiagnosed with ME.
Yeah.
What does that stand for?
Myocephalitis. Oh, it's got one of those. Even though that I carried this diagnosis for so long, I never learned how to pronounce. Encephalitis is the last word.
Encephalitis. Because that's a brain inflammation of some sort, isn't it?
Yeah. It is. Hang on. I think it's myalgic. Let me.
Myalgia. That's
Myalgic. It is myalgic. Myalgic encephalomyelitis. Nerves. They've given it a name that makes you tired even saying it, which is ironic. So myalgic encephalomyelitis, but ME. So chronic fatigue syndrome is what it's kind of. Because they always say ME/CFS, which is chronic fatigue, which I suppose, in a way, is a much simpler way of describing the base level symptoms, but the symptoms that come with it, as far as I understand, I mean, you've got it's not just fatigue. Fatigue is probably one of the most horrible symptoms. It's like complete neurological, like brain fog that comes with it. A lot of people that have experienced like post-COVID stuff will relate to that. There's pain, there's disorientation, there's a hangover feeling, or just a feeling of flu, a feeling of fullness in your limbs, and a fatigue that feels like you haven't slept in about 10 days on end, that never goes away. No matter how much you sleep, it's just always there.
And the encephalitis part of it, does that affect like thought patterns as well? I mean, I know this isn't
it affects everything, and it also comes in waves. For anyone who's experienced it, it's so some days it'll be slightly better, and that's why I think people can't really understand it, and because it's inside you also as well, you look relatively normal from the outside, and 100% it affects composition of thought. So even stringing on my worst days, stringing together normal sentences, I developed a tick and a stutter on my worst when I was in the thick of it, but just thinking about even day-to-day tasks or doing any kind of logical thought process. And then having spontaneous creative thought becomes very hard as well. So a lot of people that go through depersonalization, which means you essentially lose your personality, because without spontaneous thought, we are just machines, really. We're
drones.
We're able to answer, how is your day going? Yes, no, would you like this for food? But in terms of like coming up with what makes us, I think, individuals is our ability to spontaneously communicate things that someone else might not have, which makes us unique. And you lose a lot of that, I think, when your brain is on survival mode, because I think it just uses resources for what it needs to get through the day, but everything else, it just becomes weighed down by inflammation, essentially, in your body.
And then that turned out to be actually Lyme's disease.
Yeah, so it's such a complex area, because I think we're still on the precipice of understanding what these chronic illnesses mean. Because for me, I think that ME, rather than misdiagnosis, is more of a symptom, because they still don't really know the cause of ME. There's not enough research for them to be able to say definitively this is why people enter a state. Some people think it's a post-viral thing caused by the Epstein-Barr virus. Some people think that it could be mold poisoning. It could be an autoimmune thing. Like, I think that there's probably all of these answers could be true, which means I think that it's actually a symptom of something bigger that's going on, that's caused the body to just go into absolute shutdown mode. Because post-COVID, people experience a lot of the very same symptoms, like fatigue, just brain fog that won't go away. And so I think that I do probably have ME as well, if that makes sense. I feel like that's a symptom of. And maybe Lyme disease was the catalyst. So they found antibodies to Lyme disease, which is this bacteria you can get from a tick, in my blood much later on in my journey, which was probably the thing that set it off. And the thing that was frustrating for me, that if you catch Lyme disease within this first month window of getting it, you only need to take a 2-week course of antibiotics and you're cured most of the time.
Right, it's fine.
So
how do you know you got it in those early stages then? I mean,
exactly.
assuming that you how can you be aware of that?
Nobody thought to test for it for me until until probably about 8 years too late, or six or 8. It's hard to know exactly when I got it, but it's a progressive disease, so the symptoms get worse and worse over time, and the more time it's left, the more. And that was definitely my experience. Is that I started.
Difficult it is to deal with it once it's taken hold, or is it
exactly? So when we actually got round to finding it, this is cutting a very long story very short. By the time I treated it, I was just left with basically a messed up immune system that had learned a lot of bad habits and a lot of autoimmunity, a lot of damage to my nervous system, to my organs, and with this condition called mast cell activation disorder, which is where your cells overreact, and I became allergic to a lot of things, and particularly sensitive to histamine and things like that. But it's a minefield. It's a minefield, really is.
Histamine is the thing that you get with allergies, isn't it?
Yeah, you take the antihistamines to get rid of it, so you can't not take antihistamines or anything like that.
Wow. It's a minefield, really is.
Histamine is the thing that you get with allergies, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Except so mast cell activation disorder is when your body it reacts massively to histamine and it can't process it. So all of those allergy symptoms, you start reacting to everything from. I can be, if somebody walks in this and they've got like a strong smelling perfume or aftershave on, I can suddenly start feeling like I'm hungover. It's really bizarre.
It's a good thing we're doing this remotly, because I'm drenched.
You're drenched. I'm sure you are a fine smelling young man. But yeah, so at the moment I live on a diet of about 5 things. So I eat fresh meat, cooked, and I eat a very limited amount of vegetables, courgettes, squash, and a few other things. And if I eat anything else, again, I wouldn't be able to sit here talking to you if I had a bowl of cereal this morning, for example. And it's
crazy.
It's not just as simple as like a gluten or dairy intolerance. You become intolerant to everything. And so I've had to live within a bit of a bubble in terms of what I expose myself to. But this treatment here, I'm on a lot of mast cell blockers like ketokefian, chromalin, and some other things, and they help suppress these reactions. And the goal is to be able to return to a normal, healthy diet.
Be able to nip down to McDonald's or to KFC. You can't just do it. It goes a lot deeper than what when you initially thought. You think it's got Lyme disease, he feels crappy all the time, but then you don't realize that all these allergies, all these sensitivities to things that he can't do that normal people do. Wow, okay.
That'd be great. I mean, it sounds pretty healthy. I mean, just probably not very exciting.
Well, so it's this thing called the paleo diet, which is it's based on Paleolithic. I think that's how you say it. So the caveman diet, because we were all. It's funny that this is the diet that works for me because it makes biological sense. So like we're all evolved. Basically, our industries evolved faster than our bodies did. So taking grain, making mass-produced foods. Human evolution only happens at a certain speed, so I think it's why a lot of people are now in the modern world developing a lot of illnesses and a lot of this autoimmunity because
that makes sense.
When you go back to eating like a caveman would, which is like hunter-gatherer, you get your meat, you get your nuts, you get your vegetables from the land around you that sustains you. There are less reactions, so a lot of these people with autoimmune disease, when they go to these sorts of diets, they feel a lot better, and it kind of makes sense because our bodies have evolved to accommodate those sorts of diets, not really
because it's not processed food, it's not stuff just thrown together, it's not mass produced, it's not just thrown into the cheap section in the supermarket, you know, where people basically eat crap, won't they?
And it kind of makes sense because our bodies have evolved to accommodate those sorts of diets, not really evolved to accommodate lots of overly processed diets. So I guess it makes sense in that regard.
Yeah, I suppose it's just keeping it simple, actually, isn't it? I mean,
that's it, man.
You know, keep it simple. Just hunter gatherer. I mean, berries.
Without actually hunting, I'm not going out there with a spear and spearing myself.
It's optional, that part.
Yeah, probably quite frowned upon.
It would be.
And then, so when you were first diagnosed, is that because it says on here that that Sony Records?
Right. Okay. So that is Sony Records is the start of the video where he has obviously where he thought, you know, the one we've already covered. So we'll end this video here. It's at 33 minutes 52. Very interesting. That I loved hearing about Ren's early life. I loved hearing about his shyness, the stuff they did growing up, the busking, the making songs about his friends, etc. That was interesting insight. But this medical stuff, just before obviously they go into the next video, it's quite elaborate compared to what I watched in that first interview, that first snippet of this interview. So you know, I feel like I know a lot more about him now, which is good. We will pick this up again next week, or if I feel inspired to do it beforehand, I might bring you the rest of this interview on another day that's not Wednesday. Anyway, if you like my videos, then please hit like and subscribe. I'll see you all on the next one.